Alright everyone, welcome back to the Mediaverse Studios YouTube channel. My name is Jake, and today I'm going to be doing another gear review. So I'm going to be taking a look at a piece of gear that came out last year that was very popular among the videographer, YouTube content creator, gear reviewer crowd. There's tons of videos out about it, but I wanted to take a look at it from a filmmaking perspective, specifically a budget indie filmmaking perspective, and try to help you decide if it's a good piece of gear for your workflow or what uses it may be compatible with on your filmmaking journey. This piece of gear has some really interesting features. It's very packed full of functionality. I wanted to figure out what was useful out of all those functions and what can go by the wayside, what may be improved upon in a future generation, and whether it's worth the price tag on it. Today I'm going to be talking about the DJI Focus Pro system. I currently have the Creator combo, and that consists of the hand grip with the focus wheel, a focus motor, and a LiDAR autofocusing unit. These three things, along with a bunch of cables and a bunch of attachments for rigging, come together in a little package. It's very nice. Costs about $1,000 all in, and it basically adds focus pulling and autofocus to your cinema rig. Using just the hand grip and the focus motor, you're able to rig this up to your camera to any lens that has this 0.8 gearing on the focus ring, just like these vintage lenses I talked about in the last video. You're able to rig that up and basically pull focus from this hand grip to control the focus on any rig that you have set up. Now, when you add in this LiDAR piece, what this basically does is send out packets of infrared light to a subject. It bounces back, it reads that distance, and then based on the calibration you have set in the hand grip or on the companion app, based off the calibration that you've set for the specific lens you're on, it will take that distance information and convert that into a focus throw adjustment automatically. Now, this isn't the first time that DJI has tried to do something with LiDAR for autofocusing capabilities. This is the DJI 3D Focus system. This came out with the RS2 Pro gimbal, I believe, as an add-on. Basically what you can do is attach this to the gimbal. It does the exact same thing, just a little bit less sophisticated. And it was definitely a prototype that they put out into the consumer base to find out, if there was a desire for something like this in the future. And then they came out with its big brother with the, I think, the RS3 or RS4 gimbal. Before, you were only able to use this on a gimbal, so you had to, rig up your gimbal, balance it, and then you could use the hand grip of that gimbal to do the focusing for you. And you could also set up the LiDAR so that you're on a gimbal, you don't need a focus puller, that kind of thing. I believe there was probably enough demand from the customers that wanted to use the LiDAR functionality and the focusing capabilities on a handheld rig outside of the gimbal that they finally broke down and created something like this. It's a very interesting piece, and there's a lot that I like about it and some that I don't like about it. So let's get into it. So when you talk about pulling focus as a camera operator, there are a few tools at your disposal. Starting off, you have the traditional just focus wheel here. This is just a manual wheel that rigs up onto your camera. You set your focus points and you can pull manually if you're a solo shooter. If you happen to have a camera assistant or someone that can pull focus for you, you're going to get something like the Tilta Nucleus Nano, the Nucleus M, or the next generation of that, the small rig Magic Fizz system. So what this basically is a wireless motor, rigs up on your rails, and then you have a focus puller that can do this wirelessly. They turn this wheel, it adjusts the gearing on the motor accordingly, and then you have someone pulling that focus for you so you can keep hands on the camera and get the movement that you want. I like these systems a lot. When I shoot, I try to use an AC as much as possible. Having someone that can help shoulder that kind of visual context you're trying to get with a focus pull, that's very nice to do. If you are solo, however, you're stuck with a manual piece, or now with the DJI Focus Pro system, because you can rig this up onto your camera and pull focus yourself. What I like about this design over this design, obviously, is you're able to use this as a grip as well and just use a single finger to do that focus pulling in a non-resistive kind of way. Whereas, with this thing, you have to get your hand off the camera, bring it forward. Here, I'll just show you. You have to take your hand off the camera, put it here, and try to do some sort of balancing act while you are, focusing that lens and watching the screen and moving the camera if you are all in one kind of motion there. Whereas with this system, you just slide this onto your cage, and then you have a grip here. It just is very ergonomic as is, and then you can just pull one finger up and do the focusing there. Much less cumbersome and doesn't take your hands off the camera, which is also very nice. As you see, that does fit nicely on there. It's good and strong. You can kind of one-hand the camera with this thing, but I did have to kind of reconfigure my entire camera setup to accommodate this system. I ended up taking one of the rigging pieces from this thing actually and rigging it to the inside of my cage so that I could get this rod extension out here, which gets the motor nice and close, and I can rig it upside down. That way I can get the motor engaged and keep it out of the way of any other extra things I need to throw on here. But I definitely had to rig my camera up with this system in mind so that it was easy to get on and off of a tripod, not have to de-rig, several pieces in order to get something else on, to get it on a gimbal, to pack it up. At the end of the day, all of the rigging has to be done intentionally. You can't just start throwing things on and hope it works. Last but not least, and my least favorite thing, is the rigging of this LiDAR device. The device comes with this little screw mount adapter that mounts onto the bottom here, kind of gets that nice little extension, and you can hope to rig this thing maybe to the top of your top handle or off to the side somewhere. But the ideal placement for this LiDAR system is as close to the lens as you can get it and as close to the sensor as you can get it on the camera. So you want to be as close as you can on the x-axis, as close as you can on the y-axis, and as close as you can on the z-axis. Some of those things have to be sacrificed in order to accommodate your other rigging. And then this piece is just not even close to cutting it in terms of solving that problem for different rigging scenarios. What I found was most valuable is to prioritize first the x-axis, then the y-axis, and lastly the z-axis. You can compensate for the z-axis in the system itself. You can give a distance to the sensor from the tip of the LiDAR. So you're able to measure, from your sensor plane on your camera to the front of this system, and then that math will adjust accordingly on your focus throws. You don't have that for the X or the Y axis, so you need to prioritize those two. So what I ended up doing was literally Velcro on the bottom of my mat box, just like that. That's so silly, right? So I'm designing and 3D printing a actual kind of cage system to screw into the mat box and into the provided screw holes on the LiDAR. So once that's done and I've tested it and it's working, I will put it in the description of this video. You can go and download it for free and have it if you happen to have the Tilt Mirage mat box with this LiDAR system. I found that this setup works really well. You're able to just measure the distance from the front of your LiDAR back to your sensor plane for each lens that you put this on. And since you're changing the mat box with each lens anyways, that adjustment can just be saved in each lens profile. And you are very close in the y-axis, and you're right on in the x-axis. So I found that that setup gives me the most accurate autofocusing pulls with that LiDAR system. So we've got it all rigged up. We've got the hand grip, we've got the motor, we've got the LiDAR set up, and then it's just going to be 3 cables provided by DJI to hook this all together. Talking about these cables real quick, these are proprietary DJI Type-C to Type-C cables. You can't just go out and get any old USB-C cabling to make this work. It has to be their specific pin out, and they only sell them in this length. Not very long, especially if you're trying to do shoulder rigging. If you have your camera way back here, or you have your hands way back here and your lens motor mount is right here, on a shoulder rig, you're not going to be able to connect those. And you can get an extension for these, but again, the pin mount has to match exactly to the DJI spec, and it has to fit inside all the ports. So a very specific kind of extension cable is required. I was able to pick up a couple, and I'll give a link to those so that you guys can have them and not have to do the guesswork. But yeah, the very frustrating thing is that these are proprietary. They don't make them in any longer sizes, and not all extensions will work for it. So we're all set up here. We can just kind of work the menu system. And that's one thing that I like about this is the menu system. It's just your kind of classic swiping up and down to get into different menus on this actual head unit itself. You can calibrate the motor. So it's basically measuring the focus throw of this specific lens. So you can connect to Bluetooth from your camera to this device. I think a Type-C connection works too, but that allows you to enable that autofocusing system. But without it, you're able to, as you can see, just turn the wheel and it adjusts the lens accordingly. But if you get Bluetooth enabled, then you can turn on autofocus here, which is basically going to, as I move around, the lens will focus. And you'll notice that I'm coming close to the LiDAR, not to the lens. So if I come close to the lens, it's not seeing my hand at all, but if I come down, there it focuses. Cool. So that's why you need the LiDAR to be as close to the lens as possible in that X and Y axis. And the nice thing is you can do autofocus by just like moving the camera around normally as you would with a Sony camera or anything that has autofocus, obviously without Blackmagic. But if you need to stop autofocus, if you want to just go to manual, you can just hit the M button and you can start racking focus on your own. Very nice. Now you can do this thing called AMF mode, which is auto manual focus, where it's on autofocus, but you can still push this wheel to try to override it. And it does give you resistance, which is really cool. You can feel the autofocus fighting against you, so you can hold that. It's not very hard, and you can let it go and it'll refocus itself. I could see this function being very useful for if you are tracking a subject and the subject like goes behind a car or a tree, so you want to hold that as it moves past, and then you can let go and let it re-autofocus. Real quick, I'm going to go through my other favorite things about this device. Lens profiles. You can have 3 lens profiles, not 3 lenses, 3 lens profiles. So I have a profile for regular cinema lenses, anamorphic lenses, and then one for my vintage lenses. So that means all 5 of my vintage lenses, I can get them calibrated and set into a profile. And then when it's time to swap lenses, say I want to go from the 50 to the 35, I just select the 35. It has all of that calibration data built into it, as well as that Z-axis offset, and it will just know what the autofocusing math is there in that profile. So you just have to change lenses, select, calibrate, and then you're good to go. The motor torque is insanely impressive. I don't think it would ever falter under any lens system out there. The other thing I really like about this is the subject tracking with the autofocus LiDAR system. It does faces really well. Or you can find an object or a feature and you can get your little box drawn around it, push your set button, and then it will hold that focus no matter where you move. It's not like a center focus thing, it actually is doing tracking, which is very neat. I also like that it gives you distance information from the LiDAR, so it is kind of a rangefinder in that regard, and you can also set in and out points with this focus dial here. Those are all features that as a focus puller you will learn to appreciate. I will say that this system right here is set up for a solo shooter, but there is a companion piece with this, and that is I think it's called the DJI Focus hand unit, and it is essentially one of these. It's about $900. But that is specifically for a focus puller to not just run focus, but it can also rack iris and zoom. So if you had a couple of more motors and you had obviously a cine zoom lens with a focus, iris, and zoom or fizz setup, you could use this one unit to control all of those things. So if you are a camera assistant, that would be something very attractive to look at. I know that all of this also integrates with the DJI transmission system. So they have their like high bright monitor and their whole transmission setup. It's kind of all this like geared ecosystem that they're building. That just all kind of comes together because DJI is good at 3 things. It's good at stabilization, it's good at image transmission, and it's good at subject tracking. So who is this product for? Specifically the creator kit. This is going to be for solo shooters. It's going to be for the wedding videographers, people that are shooting B-roll, possibly a B camera operator if you're handheld. Using this LiDAR, I could see it being used for things like dolly shots, or if you were up on a crane and you didn't have a way to pull focus yourself, you could use that autofocus. But it's definitely for someone who doesn't have an AC on their team and they need to still be able to use a cine lens or rack focus for whatever context they're trying to tell with their story. For being run on a kind of larger set, I don't necessarily see this being very functional because you would have a camera assistant right there that's able to pull focus for you. But that AMF mode is nice if you are needing to capture context and don't have a way to brief your assistant camera. You can just throw on autofocus and get that context that you need. Everyone says gear doesn't matter, but sometimes it does. Sometimes it removes those barriers of entry to kind of smaller filmmakers that don't have the big crew, that don't have a whole team behind them, that don't have the time to spend on set rigging and de-rigging a camera and setting up a focus system. You know, sometimes you just need to slap it all on there and do the run and gun thing. That's what this is good for. Now, with the hand unit attached, I could see this being used on any professional set. It does work wonderfully right out of the box. So is it worth that $1,000 price tag? It might be, depending on what your needs are. I think that the feature set is there. It's very impressive. It works right out of the box. The motor torque is incredibly strong. The LiDAR system works very well. I think it's close. You know, I think that it's obviously not a replacement for good autofocus in a camera, but it does a great job. And adding the ability to autofocus a vintage lens, that's really cool. So it just depends on what value you'll get out of it. You know, will you actually use it on set, or will it just be a cool piece of gear in your kit? You need to be able to use the full feature set and have a reason for using that full feature set in order to get your money's worth, I believe. So that's just kind of my philosophy on gear. But yeah, gear does matter if it matters, you know, if it can become an essential tool in your kit, and if it removes barriers of entry to you to telling that next level of your story. But it's not going to make you a better filmmaker. It's just going to be an extra tool that you have at your disposal that may help you tell a story a little bit better. What do I not like about it? I don't like how insanely difficult it was to rig up my LiDAR system. I just think that it should be able to rig up how you want right out of the box, or give it a X-axis and Y-axis offset as well in order to compensate for any, you know, other rigging problems you may have. Like if I wanted to put it on this cold shoe, I don't see why I shouldn't be able to, and, you know, kind of just offset that and allow it to work better. I wish the battery life was also improved. I would say I can get probably 3 or 4 hours on set with it. Running the manual focus. With autofocus, I would say it's probably about 2 hours. It all runs off of a single kind of hand grip battery that you're used to from DJI gimbals. So you may want to pick up a second battery if you're planning to use this thing all day. A nice thing to have would be, it's kind of nerdy, but I would love to see a way to export LiDAR point data. There's a little camera on the front of this unit here, and it's obviously recording that LiDAR data as well as visual data. So I would love to see this device being used as a kind of 3D mapping system. It obviously has that point cloud distance data, and I feel like it would be a very useful tool for VFX artists, and as potentially like a witness camera for VFX shots and plates. I don't know if that's possible, but I think that the tech is there. I just would want to see a software implemented that can utilize that data. All that to say that the system is very interesting, and it's neat to see where the industry is going in terms of this kind of prosumer level of gear that tries to mimic that professional level. You know, it has the build quality, and it has the functionality that you would want, and it also just works. It doesn't require a whole lot of setup or crazy fiddling with menu systems to get it to work. It is worth it to sit down with it for a while and learn all of the systems and all the functions, but once you do, it's great that it just kind of does its job. There's a few things that I don't like about this system, but for the most part, I've really enjoyed using it, especially once I have it rigged up the way that is comfortable for me and fits my workflow. And I like the feature set that it allows me to have, especially running a Blackmagic camera where autofocus is non-existent. If you've used the DJI Focus Pro system and you've had a different experience with it, let us know in the comments. I'd love to hear it. If you are looking at getting it, let us know and ask questions. We'd love to answer. But that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching this review of the DJI Focus Pro system. Let us know what you think in the comments, and yeah, just keep on creating stuff. Bye.